Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. Today, we're diving into one of Japan's most famous urban legends, the story of Hanako-san. If you're watching this late at night, alone in the dark, you might want to save it for daylight hours. Now, let's begin our journey into the mysterious world of Japanese school hauntings. Hanako-san. Just hearing this name might send shivers down your spine. It's one of the most well-known urban legends in Japan, particularly popular among elementary and middle school students. But what exactly is the legend of Hanako-san? In its simplest form, Hanako-san is the ghost of a young girl said to haunt school bathrooms. She's often described as wearing a red dress or skirt, which some interpret as a blood-stained school uniform, adding to the creepy factor. The method of summoning. You enter a bathroom stall, close the door, and lock it. Then, you knock 3 times and call out, "Hanako-san, are you there?" Legend has it that Hanako-san will then appear. But here's where things get truly frightening. What happens after Hanako-san appears varies widely, depending on the version of the story you hear. In some milder versions, she simply shows herself. But in more terrifying variations, she might attack the person who summoned her, drag them into the toilet, or even drain their blood if they touch her. The origins of Hanako-san are as varied as the outcomes of summoning her. One common theory is that she's the ghost of a student who committed suicide due to bullying. In this version, she took her life in the school bathroom, and her restless spirit remains there, seeking vengeance or companionship. Another theory suggests she's the ghost of a girl who died hiding in a school bathroom during World War II air raids. These backstories tap into very real and deep-seated fears in Japanese society. Schools, places that should be safe and nurturing, become the setting for terror. The everyday act of using the bathroom becomes a potential encounter with the supernatural. It's a potent mix of the mundane and the extraordinary that makes urban legends so compelling. The spread of the Hanako-san legend is deeply rooted in Japanese school culture and the psychology of children and teenagers. School can be a stressful environment with academic pressures and complex social dynamics. In this context, scary stories like Hanako-san provide a thrill, a break from the ordinary, and perhaps a way to process fears and anxieties. The choice of a bathroom as the haunted location is also significant. Bathrooms are one of the few places in a school where students can be truly alone. But they're also often dimly lit and can feel eerie. This makes them the perfect setting for a ghostly encounter. The Hanako-san legend has evolved over time, adapting to new generations. In recent years, it has inspired smartphone apps, horror movies, and even anime series. Despite these modern interpretations, the core of the legend remains the same. It continues to reflect our fascination with the unknown and our... Now, if you're sensitive to scary stories, you might want to stop the video here, because what comes next is my own creative story, inspired by the legend of Hanako-san. It's entirely fictional, but it might feel unearthingly real. I wouldn't recommend listening to this alone at midnight. Are you ready? Then let's begin our tale. The Girl in the Red Uniform. Our story begins at an old middle school in the suburbs of Tokyo. Midorigaoka Junior High School, over 50 years old, still carries an air of antiquity despite numerous renovations. Cracks in the corners of hallways tell tales of years gone by, and the stair railings shine with a unique luster. polished by the hands of countless students over the decades. On a soft spring day in April, a transfer student arrives at this school. Masaki Sato, 14 years old, her eyes reflecting a mix of anxiety and anticipation. As Masaki opens the classroom door and stands before her new classmates, she begins her self-introduction with a slightly nervous demeanor. "I'm Masaki Sato. Nice to meet you all," she starts. But as she tries to continue, a strange sense of déjà vu washes over her. It's as if she stood in this very classroom before. But the sensation vanishes as quickly as it came, and Masaki takes her seat. With her bright and sociable nature, Masaki quickly befriends her classmates. During breaks, many students gather around her, asking about her hometown and hobbies. Among them, Masaki becomes particularly close to a girl named Hanako. Hana shares Masaki's cheerful disposition, and the two hit it off immediately. However, on her way home that day, Masaki encounters a peculiar incident. As she's changing her shoes at the shoe lockers, she hears a small sound coming from the locker next to hers. A soft knock, knock, as if someone were tapping from inside. Nervously, Masaki opens the locker, only to find a red handkerchief inside. It's the very same handkerchief she's sure she had in her pocket that morning. How did this get here? Masaki wonders, puzzled as she picks up the handkerchief. As she does, an old, worn photograph slips out. The photo shows a girl who looks strikingly similar to Masaki. The uniform the girl is wearing is clearly different from the current one, appearing to be from about 50 years ago. On the back of the photo, in faded handwriting, is written, Masaki. Shaken, Masaki is about to examine the photo more closely. When the school bell rings, she quickly tucks the photo into her pocket and heads home, her mind swirling with questions. That night, Masaki has a strange dream. In it, a girl wearing a bright red uniform is crying in the school bathroom. The girl's appearance is identical to the one in the photograph Masaki found. As Masaki tries to call out to her, the girl turns around, her eyes bloodshot, and stares directly at Masaki. In a hoarse voice, she whispers, "Help me." Masaki wakes up in a cold sweat. The clock shows it's only 3 a.m. As she tries to sit up, she notices a human-like shadow in the corner of her room and almost screams. But upon closer inspection, it's just her school uniform hanging up. Masaki sighs in relief, but can't shake the feeling that for a moment, the uniform looked red. With an uneasy heart, she drifts back to sleep. The next morning, Masaki has all but forgotten about the unsettling dream. As she heads to school as usual, however, when she enters the classroom, she notices something odd about her classmates' behavior. Everyone seems to be looking at her with fear in their eyes. "What's wrong?" Masaki asks. One of her classmates nervously replies, "Masaki, didn't you come to school last night? I saw someone who looked just like you, wearing a red outfit, walking in the schoolyard." Masaki shakes her head. "That's impossible. I was at home all night." But other classmates chime in. "But I saw it too. Me, too. It was definitely you, Masaki." Confused, Masaki is about to respond when their homeroom teacher, Mr. Yamada, enters the room to start the morning homeroom session. Mr. Yamada wears a grave expression as he addresses the class. "I have some important news for everyone. Last night, there was an incident at our school. The night watchman, Mr. Sasaki, was found." Mr. Yamada pauses, taking a deep breath. He was found deceased in the third-floor girls' bathroom. A wave of shock ripples through the classroom. Students gasp and cry out in surprise, but Masaki feels frozen in place. The dream from last night flashes back in her mind with startling clarity. According to the police investigation, it appears to have been a heart attack, Mr. Yamada continues. However, there are some puzzling aspects to the case. An old photograph was found near Mr. Sasaki's body. The photo showed a girl in a school uniform from about 50 years ago. And the girl in the photo looked. Mr. Yamada's gaze shifts to Masaki. She looked remarkably like you, Masaki. All eyes in the class turn to Masaki. With trembling hands, she reaches into her pocket and pulls out the photograph she found yesterday. Sure enough, it shows a girl who looks exactly like her. This photo, I found it in my shoe locker yesterday, Masaki says in a small voice. Mr. Yamada looks perplexed. Masaki, would you mind showing that photo to the police? It might be important evidence. After school, Masaki heads to the staff room with the photo. But what awaits her there is beyond anything she could have imagined. In the staff room are 2 police officers and an elderly woman. She's never seen before. The elderly woman bursts into tears upon seeing Masaki. Masaki, is it really you? Confused, Masaki stands frozen. One of the police officers begins to explain. Ms. Sato, this is Mrs. Miki Sato. She's the mother of a girl who went missing from this school 50 years ago. Masaki's breath catches in her throat. Miki Sato, the same name as her own. And the girl in the photo. Everything starts to connect. The elderly woman, the mother of the Masaki from 50 years ago, begins to speak. 50 years ago, my daughter Masaki suddenly disappeared. The police searched desperately, but she was never found. And then yesterday, I got a call from the police. The elderly woman points to the photo Masaki is holding. They said that photo was found, along with the red handkerchief I gave to Masaki. With shaking hands, Masaki pulls out the red handkerchief. The elderly woman's eyes widen. There's no mistake. This is the handkerchief I gave to Masaki. But how? One of the police officers clears his throat. Ms. Sato, where were you last night? Masaki desperately tries to explain. I was at home. My parents can confirm that. However, the other police officer shakes his head. We've already spoken with your parents. They said you left the house around 9 p.m., saying you were going to stay at a friend's house. Masaki is at a loss for words. She has no memory of this. She can't understand what's happening. Just then, a scream echoes from the hallway. Everyone rushes out to find a janitor who has fainted. The janitor is pointing at the wall, where the words, "Give Masaki back," are written in what appears to be blood. Panic ensues in the staff room. The police officers immediately begin a search of the entire school. Masaki holds her head in her hands. What's happening? Who is she really? Everything is descending into chaos. That night, after being questioned by the police, Masaki is allowed to return home. Her steps are heavy as she enters her house. Her parents greet her with worried faces. Masaki, are you all right? We got a call from the police. Her mother says. Masaki remains silent and heads straight to her room. Standing in front of her mirror, she sees her familiar reflection. But looking closely, there seems to be something else lurking behind her eyes. Suddenly, the reflection in the mirror starts to smile. Masaki steps back in shock, but her reflection remains unchanged. Then, in a hoarse voice, it begins to speak. We finally meet, Masaki. paralyzed with fear. Masaki can't even scream. The reflection continues. I am the real Masaki. The Masaki who disappeared 50 years ago. You are my reincarnation. Confused, Masaki manages to ask, "What do you mean?" The Masaki in the mirror begins to explain with a sad expression. 50 years ago, I was a student at this school. I was bullied every day, and life was hell. One day, I decided I couldn't take it anymore, and in this bathroom. The reflection puts her hand to her neck. I tried to end my life. But at the very last moment, I got scared. I didn't want to disappear. I wanted to live so badly. In that instant, I lost consciousness. And when I became aware again, I was a baby. Masaki gasps as she begins to understand the implications of the reflection's words. The reflection continues, "Yes, I was reincarnated into you. So your body is actually mine. After 50 years, I've finally been able to return. This time, I'll finish what I started." The image of the reflection begins to blur and move towards Masaki. Masaki screams, "No, this is my life, my body." But the hand of the reflection passes through the mirror, trying to enter Masaki's body. Masaki resists desperately. "Please, don't go." A voice cries out. It came from Masaki's mouth, but it sounded like someone else's voice. In the next instant, a blinding light envelops the entire room. Masaki's vision blurs, and she loses consciousness. When she comes to, Masaki finds herself in the school hallway. But something is different. The paint on the walls, the tiles on the floor, everything looks older. Confused, Masaki peeks into a nearby classroom. There,
Tudo julgado por
she
uma
sees
comissão
students in
formada.
uniforms
Tudo
from
julgado por
50
uma
years
comissão
ago,
formada.
attending a
Tudo
lesson.
julgado por uma comissão.
No way. Masaki checks her own clothes. She's wearing the same old style uniform. At the end of the hallway, she notices a large mirror. Nervously approaching it, she confirms her appearance. The reflection shows the Masaki from 50 years ago. However, the look in the eyes is that of the present-day Masaki. It's as if two consciousnesses
You just gotta keep it working on it, bro.
body.
Yeah.
Suddenly, a voice calls from behind her. "Masaki, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" Turning around, she sees a girl who looks exactly like the present-day Hana Tanaka. "It's me, Hana. Class is about to start." Masaki, realizing she's somehow in the world of 50 years ago, tries to maintain her composure. "Oh, yeah, I just have a bit of a headache." Hana looks at Masaki with concern. "Are you okay? Do you want to go to the nurse's office?" "No, I'm fine. Let's go back to the classroom." As they walk back to class, Masaki notices a boy standing in the corner of the hallway. His thin frame and downcast posture clearly mark him as a victim of bullying. Hana whispers, "That's Sasaki. He's always so gloomy." At that moment, a flash of realization hits Masaki. Sasaki, the same name as the night watchman. And she remembers her classmate in the present day, Shota Sasaki. Back in the classroom, Masaki desperately tries to grasp the situation. The date on the blackboard reads May 3, 1974. Exactly 50 years ago. She understands that this is the daily life of Masaki from 50 years ago. Or rather, her own past life. As the lessons progress, memories from the present and 50 years ago clash in Masaki's mind. Her modern life, her parents, her friends, and the painful days experienced by the Masaki of 50 years ago. The bullying, the despair. These swirl together, confusing Masaki even more. After school, Masaki decides to explore the school alone. disoriented by the differences in the building's layout compared to the present. She relies on the memories from 50 years ago to guide her steps. She stops in front of the girls' bathroom on the third floor. This is where it all began. The place where the Masaki of 50 years ago tried to end her life. Nervously, she opens the door, and to her surprise, the inside of the bathroom looks modern, just like in her own time. Even her reflection in the mirror has returned to that of the present-day Masaki. And then, she sees another figure in the mirror, the Masaki from 50 years ago. The Masaki from 50 years ago speaks, "We can become one here. If we do, we'll be freed from this curse." The present-day Masaki asks, "But doesn't that mean I'll disappear?" The Masaki from 50 years ago sadly shakes her head. "No, that's not it. We are originally one soul. We were just torn apart by time. If we become one, we can regain our true self." Masaki hesitates. She fears losing her identity, but at the same time, she has an intuition that integrating with her past self might be the key to solving all the mysteries. At that moment, she hears the bathroom door open. Turning around, she sees the boy Sasaki standing there. His eyes are bloodshot, and he's holding a knife in his hand. "Masaki, it's all because of you, Sasaki mutters. Masaki is confused. She doesn't understand why Sasaki harbors resentment towards her. But memories from 50 years ago start flooding back. Sasaki had admired her, but she had rejected him, and as a result, he became an even bigger target for bullying. Sasaki raises the knife. "If you disappear, everything will go back to normal." In that instant, something awakens within Masaki. The memories from 50 years ago and the present meld together, giving birth to a new consciousness. Masaki shouts at Sasaki, "That's not true. We can't change the past. But we can change the future." Sasaki stops at Masaki's words. Tears well up in his eyes. "But Masaki quietly approaches him and takes the knife from his hand. "Sasaki, I'm sorry for hurting you. But it's not too late. Let's create a new future together." At that moment, a bright light envelops the entire bathroom. Masaki and Sasaki's bodies begin to dissolve like mist. When Masaki opens her eyes, she finds herself in the nurse's office of the present-day school. She's lying on a bed, with her worried parents and Mr. Yamada standing beside her. "Thank goodness, you're awake," her mother says, relief washing over her face. Masaki slowly sits up. In her mind, memories from 50 years ago and the present coexist. But it's no longer a confusion, rather a harmonious single consciousness. "What happened? You suddenly collapsed," her father asks. Masaki gives a small smile. "I'm okay. I just had a very long dream." At that moment, the door to the nurse's office opens, and Shota Sasaki peeks in. Masaki, are you okay?" Masaki looks at Sasaki and nods quietly. "Yes, I'm fine. Thank you, Sasaki." Sasaki's eyes widen, as if he sensed a deeper meaning in Masaki's words. After that, school life returned to normal with surprising speed. However, there were subtle changes. Bullying almost disappeared, and a strange sense of unity developed among the students. Masaki never told anyone about her experience, but her actions and words now carried a deep insight that seemed to span 50 years. And in a corner of the school, a new legend was born. There were rumors of a girl with a red handkerchief, sometimes seen walking through the school, as if protecting someone. Those who saw her said they felt a warmth in their hearts and a surge of courage. One afternoon, Masaki stood alone on the school rooftop, looking down at the school buildings bathed in the setting sun. She whispered to herself, "This isn't the end. There are still things that need to be resolved." Her eyes were fixed on the distant horizon, as if a new story was waiting to unfold there. But Masaki's adventure doesn't end here. In her consciousness, where memories from 50 years ago and the present have merged, unexpected abilities have started to emerge. A few days later, Masaki makes a strange discovery. Among her belongings, she finds a smartphone that she supposedly brought from the present. However, this smartphone is no ordinary device. Its screen displays events that haven't happened yet, one after another. Through this mysterious smartphone, Masaki gains the ability to glimpse into the futures of her classmates. And among these futures, she sees several tragic events. For instance, she sees a vision of her best friend Hanako being involved in a traffic accident. She witnesses a scene where Tatsuya Suzuki, once a bully, attempts suicide. And she sees the moment when Shota Sasaki is cornered by a group of delinquents and seriously injured. Masaki makes a decision. She will use this precognitive ability to save her friends. However, the weight of the responsibility of changing the future almost crushes her. Meanwhile, strange rumors begin to spread within the school. There are stories of odd lights seen from the school building at night, and tales of piano sounds coming from the music room when no one should be there. And suddenly, the legend of Hanako-san in the girls' bathroom becomes wildly popular among the students. Masaki realizes that the 50-year-old memories residing within her are beginning to influence the entire school. And this influence isn't always positive. One day, Masaki sneaks into the music room after school. She wants to investigate the source of the rumors. However, what awaits her there is a scene beyond her imagination. In the center of the music room, dozens of semi-transparent students are sitting in a circle. Among them, she sees her own figure from 50 years ago. When they notice Masaki, they all turn to face her simultaneously. "You've finally come, Masaki." The Masaki from 50 years ago speaks. "We've been waiting for you." To the bewildered Masaki, the 50-year-old Masaki begins to explain. "We are students who met unfortunate ends in this school. After 50 years, we've finally gained the opportunity to return to the living world. But to fully return, we need your power." Masaki asks in a trembling voice, "What can I do?" "You are the bridge between the past and the present. You are the one who can convey our feelings to the modern day and unravel the unsolved mysteries." The 50-year-old Masaki answers. At that moment, various images flood into Masaki's mind. Bullying, accidents, and murder. All of these were events that occurred at this school 50 years ago. "But how can I?" Masaki starts to say, when suddenly, the door to the music room opens. There stands Mr. Yamada, his face a mask of shock. "Masaki, what on earth?" Mr. Yamada's words trail off. He too can see the spirits gathered in the room. With a pale face, Mr. Yamada confesses, "Actually, I was involved in the events from 50 years ago." Masaki and the spirits gasp. Through Mr. Yamada's confession, the truth behind the tragedy from 50 years ago starts to come to light. The bullying, the teacher's indifference, and finally, the heartbreak. Mr. Yamada was a new teacher at the time, and although he knew the truth, he had kept silent. "I can't hide the truth any longer, Mr. Yamada says, bowing deeply. "Please, let me atone for my sins." Triggered by these words, The spirits gathered in the music room gradually begin to materialize. The expressions of pain and anger on their faces slowly start to soften. Masaki makes a decision. We can't change the past, but we can change the future. Let's all work together to make this school truly wonderful in the real sense. At that moment, a dazzling light envelops the music room. The figures of the spirits turn into particles of light and are absorbed into Masaki and Mr. Yamada. When they come to, only Masaki and Mr. Yamada remain in the room, but within them now resides 50 years worth of memories and the strength to overcome them. From the next day, the atmosphere in the school changed dramatically. A mysterious bond formed among the students, and bullying almost disappeared. The teachers, led by Mr. Yamada, began to face each student with sincerity. However, this didn't mean that everything was resolved. Masaki's smartphone still displays ominous visions of the future, and new paranormal phenomena begin to occur within the school. One day, on her way home from school, Masaki is stopped by an unfamiliar man. "You must be Masaki," the man says with a mysterious smile. "Don't you want to know the truth about the incident from 50 years ago?" Masaki is so surprised she can't speak. Who is this man, and what does he mean by the truth? The man continues, "Come to the back of the old school building tomorrow at 6 p.m. I'll tell you everything." As soon as he finishes speaking, the man disappears into the crowd. Although confused, Masaki intuitively understands that this encounter will bring about a new development. That night, Masaki can't sleep. Her smartphone shows an image of herself collapsing in the backyard of the old school building tomorrow. She wrestles with the decision of whether to go or not. The next day, after school, Masaki heads to the old school building without telling her friends anything. Just before the clock strikes 6, she arrives at the backyard, where the man from yesterday appears again. "I'm glad you came." The man begins speaking in a calm tone. "I was a teacher at this school 50 years ago. And I was." At that moment, a huge shadow appears behind the man and attacks him. Masaki tries to scream, but no voice comes out. She feels her consciousness fading away. When she opens her eyes, she finds herself in an unfamiliar room. In this space filled with old-school desks and chairs, Masaki is lying tied up. Finally awake, "Are we?" A gloomy voice is heard. Looking up, Masaki sees an elderly man standing there. "To think that you were the one who would ruin our plans." Masaki desperately tries to grasp the situation. Who is this man, and what plans is he talking about? As if sensing Masaki's questions, the man slowly begins to speak. The incident from 50 years ago was actually. At that moment, the entire room begins to shake violently. Dust rains down from the ceiling, and cracks start to form in the walls. "No, not here." The man's face turns pale. Suddenly, the door to the room bursts open, and there stands. This is where we'll pause our story for now. The urban legend of Hanako-san, which started as a simple ghost story in a school bathroom, has evolved into a complex tale of time travel, reincarnation, and unsolved mysteries. But remember, while this story is entirely fictional, it draws on very real elements of Japanese school life and cultural fears. Urban legends like Hanako-san often serve as a way for people, especially young students, to process their anxieties and fears. The school setting is familiar yet can feel oppressive or scary at times. The bathroom, a place of privacy and vulnerability, becomes a portal to the supernatural. These elements combine to create a story that's both terrifying and oddly relatable. In Japanese culture, the concept of reincarnation and the idea that spirits can linger in our world are not uncommon. This belief system adds an extra layer of plausibility to ghost stories like Hanako-san, making them feel more real and immediate to many Japanese people. The expansion of the Hanako-san legend in this story, involving time travel and a school-wide mystery, reflects how urban legends often grow and change over time. As they're passed from person to person, new elements are added, and the story becomes more complex and intricate. The theme of past events influencing the present is also a common one in Japanese storytelling. It reflects a cultural emphasis on the importance of history and the interconnectedness of time periods. In this story, the events of 50 years ago have a direct
It's
and
very
powerful
common
impact
among
on the
highly
present,
creative people,
highlighting
both
this
artists
concept.
and scientists.
While this story is purely fictional, it taps into very real fears and experiences. Bullying, the pressure of school life, the fear of not fitting in. These are issues that many students face. By addressing these topics through the lens of a supernatural story, it allows for a kind of catharsis and a way to process these difficult emotions. The idea of a smartphone that can see the future is, of course, fantastical. However, it serves as an interesting plot device that raises questions about fate, free will, and the consequences of our actions. If we could see the future, would we try to change it? And what might be the consequences of doing so? As we continue this story, we'll see how Masaki navigates these challenges, balancing her knowledge of the past with her visions of the future. We'll explore themes of redemption, the power of friendship, and the possibility of changing one's fate. But remember, while we're delving deep into this fictional world, the original Hanako-san legend remains just that, a legend. It's a story told in schools across Japan, passed down from student to student, evolving and changing with each retelling. It's a testament to the power of urban legends and their ability to capture our imagination and reflect our deepest fears and hopes. So, the next time you're in a school bathroom, particularly if you're visiting Japan, you might think twice before calling out, "Hanako-san, are you there?" Because, in the world of urban legends, you never know who, or what, might answer. Now, let's return to our story and see what awaits Masaki. Behind that suddenly opened door, the door flies open, revealing Mr. Yamada and Shota Sasaki. Masaki. They both shout in unison. The elderly man's face contorts in surprise. "How did you?" Mr. Yamada steps forward. "Principal, let's put an end to this. We can't keep repeating the mistakes from 50 years ago." Masaki is confused. This old man is the current principal? And Mr. Yamada knew about him? The principal speaks with a bitter expression. "Yamada, you don't understand the meaning behind the actions we took that day." At that moment, another violent tremor shakes the building. The whole structure groans, and large pieces start falling from the ceiling. "Watch out!" Sasaki cries, throwing himself over Masaki to protect her. In the chaos, the mysterious smartphone slips from Masaki's pocket. On its screen, the current moment is displayed, along with what's about to happen next. "Everyone, we need to get out of here quickly," Masaki shouts. "In 2 minutes, this building will collapse." Mr. Yamada springs into action immediately. He unties Masaki, and they all attempt to escape. However, the principal doesn't move. I'll stay here," the principal says quietly. I must atone for my sins from 50 years ago here. Mr. Yamada grabs the principal's arm. No, sir. You can only atone by living. Let's reveal the truth together and correct the mistakes of the past. Tears glisten in the principal's eyes. He gives a small nod and begins to escape with everyone else. The five of them race desperately through the old school building. Eerie shadows flicker in the hallways, as if something is trying to prevent their escape. 30 seconds left. Masaki cries out. At the very last moment, the five of them manage to leap out of the building. Immediately after, with a thunderous roar, the old school building collapses. After the dust settles, the five of them silently stare at the collapsed building. It's as if 50 years' worth of emotions have just been released. The principal begins to speak heavily. 50 years ago, there was a series of murders at this school. The culprit was a teacher. The school staff at the time, including myself, covered up the incident to protect the school's reputation and the vengeful spirits of the sacrificed students. Masaki gasps. This was the source of all the inexplicable events she had been experiencing. Mr. Yamada continues, when I was first appointed, the incident had already been covered up, but I sensed something was wrong. And Masaki, ever since you transferred here, everything started to move. Sasaki speaks in a small voice. I kind of felt it too. The abnormality of this school. But after Masaki came, I could see it clearly. Masaki's feelings are complex. Her very existence had become a bridge, connecting the tragedy from 50 years ago to the present. We can't run away anymore, Masaki says in a strong voice. Let's face this 50-year-old tragedy together, head on. At that moment, Masaki's smartphone glows brightly. The screen displays images of a hopeful future. Several weeks later, with the truth now known, a police investigation reveals the full extent of the incident from 50 years ago. The honor of the students who fell victim is restored, and the truth is conveyed to their families. The school initiates new programs, learning from this incident. Anti-bullying measures are strengthened. Communication between students and teachers is promoted, and above all, there's a new attitude of learning from past mistakes to build a better future. In Masaki's class, various activities are held in memory of the students from 50 years ago. It's an attempt to connect their dreams and hopes to the present day. And one day, Masaki sees the final image on her mysterious smartphone. It shows the students from 50 years ago, smiling and waving. Their expressions no longer show any trace of resentment, only peaceful serenity. As the image fades, the smartphone returns to being an ordinary device. Masaki understands that this marks the end of everything. However, this isn't an ending, but a new beginning. A great challenge awaits Masaki and her friends to build a bright future, while keeping the lessons of the past close to their hearts. After school, Masaki stands alone on the rooftop, looking down at the school buildings bathed in the setting sun. She whispers to herself, "It's over." But this is also the beginning of a new story, isn't it? As she turns around, she sees the spectral image of Masaki from 50 years ago standing there. The apparition smiles gently, nods, and then dissolves into the sunset. Masaki takes a deep breath and returns to the classroom. The future she's walking towards is no longer hers alone. At the intersection of past, present, and future, a new story begins to unfold with her at its center. And in a corner of the school, a new legend is born. They say that if you see a girl standing alone on the rooftop at dusk, You'll feel a warmth in your heart and a surge of courage. Rumor has it that if she smiles at you, you'll find the solution to any problem troubling you. This story, which began with the urban legend of Hanako-san, has transformed through unimaginable twists and turns into a new tale of hope. But this isn't the end of everything. Because lately, something seems off about one of Masaki's classmates, Hana-Tanaka. There seems to be a new mystery lurking behind her eyes, and Masaki feels that the smartphone in her chest pocket is vibrating ever so slightly. So, that was my creative story inspired by the Hanako-san urban legend. It encompassed unimaginable horror, deep spiritual bonds, forgiveness and coexistence, and the connection between past and future. Many elements were woven into this tale. The legend of Hanako-san is more than just a scary story. It's a mirror that reflects our deepest fears and desires, and the complexity of human relationships. What did you feel through this story? Did you feel fear, or perhaps sadness? Maybe some of you felt a sense of spiritual salvation and healing. We don't know if Hanako-san really exists in the real world. But what this legend speaks to us certainly does exist. It's our awe of the unseen, the fact that past events continue to influence the present, and, above all, the importance of human connections. Masaki and the Masaki from 50 years ago. Her classmates and their counterparts from 50 years ago. The way they became one and opened up. A new future might apply to each of us as well. Various selves exist within us too. Sometimes conflicting, sometimes cooperating as we walk through life. This story also makes us think deeply about memory and identity. Masaki and her friends retained their modern memories while returning to the past. This gives us important insights into our own lives. We are shaped by our past experiences and memories, but at the same time, we are constantly changing with new experiences. Furthermore, this story teaches us the importance of choice. Masaki and her friends were forced to make the difficult decision to return to the past, abandoning their present lives. Our lives, too, are made up of an accumulation of daily small choices. Sometimes we may be forced to make choices that come with great sacrifices. But it is these choices that shape our lives. The story of Hanako-san also teaches us the power of acceptance. Just as Masaki accepted the Masaki from 50 years ago, we too might open up new possibilities by accepting the shadowy parts of ourselves, or the different aspects of others. It's not easy, but that's where the opportunity for growth lies. Another important point this story suggests is the importance of speaking up. The students from 50 years ago were unable to raise their voices for a long time. But through Masaki and her friends' courageous actions, their feelings were finally conveyed. In modern society too, the importance of speaking up against injustice and unfairness, and of listening to those voices, remains unchanged. The legend of Hanako-san also highlights the unique nature of the school environment. School is not just a place of learning, but also a living space where sensitive young people spend much of their time. Experiences there have a huge impact on life. That's why it's necessary to make continuous efforts to improve the school environment. This story also makes us think about boundaries. The boundary between life and death, past and present, reality and fantasy. These boundaries might not be as clear-cut as we think. Recognizing this ambiguity might allow us to understand the world more flexibly and deeply. The power of the Hanako-san legend lies in the fact that it's a shared story. Sharing this story creates a sense of unity among those who know it. It becomes an intangible bond connecting people. This is how stories have the power to connect people. Lastly, this story of Hanako-san is also a story of change and growth. Masaki discovered a new self through her terrifying experiences. Our lives are the same. Through various experiences, we gradually change and grow. This process might sometimes be scary or painful, but beyond that lies an encounter with a new self. Well, it's been a long story. But what did you think? Through the urban legend of Hanako-san and this creative story, what did you feel and what did you think about? This story is completely fictional. However, the messages contained within it are deeply relevant to our real lives. The mysteries lurking in our daily lives, the connections between people, the relationship between past and present. By paying attention to these, your daily life might become richer, more magical. Tonight, you might feel a bit scared to go to the bathroom alone. But remember, even if Hanako-san really existed, she might just be longing to connect with someone. And perhaps, in your school or workplace or in your life, there might be a Hanako-san. Look around carefully, listen, and reach out. Such kindness and courage can become the power to change our society for the better. Next time, we'll bring you another mysterious story. Until then, try to pay attention to the everyday mysteries around you. You're sure to make some unexpected discoveries. So, until we meet again, sweet dreams, and may your life story be a wonderful one. In closing, I'd like to emphasize that while urban legends like Hanako-san can be thrilling and entertaining, they are just that, legends. They reflect our cultural fears and fascinations, but they shouldn't be taken as fact. However, these stories can serve as interesting lenses through which we can examine our society, our relationships, and ourselves. The popularity of urban legends in Japan, like Hanako-san, reflects aspects of Japanese culture that might be intriguing to those from other parts of the world. The blend of modern settings with traditional ghost story elements, the focus on school life, and the underlying themes of bullying and isolation. These all provide insight into contemporary Japanese society. Moreover, the way these stories spread, evolve, and persist over time is a fascinating study in modern folklore. In an age of instant communication and social media, urban legends continue to thrive, adapting to new mediums and audiences. For those interested in Japanese culture, exploring urban legends like Hanako-san can be a unique way to understand more about Japanese society. Its fears, its humor, and its way of processing complex emotions through storytelling. Remember, the next time you're in a school bathroom, especially if you're visiting Japan, think twice before calling out, "Hanako-san, are you there?" You never know who might answer. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the legend of Hanako-san and the imaginative story it inspired. Until next time, keep your eyes open for the mysteries that surround us every day. And never stop wondering about the stories that shape our world.